Hi, I'm Indra, and I'd like to welcome you to the Messy Middle Matters, where my friends and I explore all the twists, turns, and challenges that arise in the messy middle of work.
Yay.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. This is Ashley. Welcome to the Messy Middle Matters.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you today.
Yes.
You and I've talked about you on the podcast so many times.
I love that. That's so nice.
And now we actually get to talk to each other, and we're going to be talking about something that everyone, whether they want to or not, has to worry about, which is branding.
Yes.
And specifically, why I definitely wanted to talk to you about this was a post that you had not too long ago. But before I go into that story and that rabbit hole, tell everyone who you are.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Hi. I am Ashley Jefferson. I am a Jersey girl through and through. And that is really important just to know about me, because I'm very like New Jersey supremacy all day, every day. Great state of New Jersey. Oldest of 3. That's also really important because I feel like it drives a lot of what I do. I'm just always very take charge. This is what's going to happen. Oh, uncertainty doesn't really bother me because I'm the eldest child and I just like create and everyone goes with it. But Jersey raised, New York City born, and I spent 10 years in corporate. So I was at big companies, insurance company, and then a big bank. And I got to the bank around the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I feel like everyone during the pandemic was having this like come to Jesus moment with themselves.
Existential crises, left, right, and center.
Yes. And especially if you were blessed to have stability in job and housing situation. And
no joke.
Yeah, not having to worry about whether a family member was going to be super sick and die, right? I feel like for a lot of people, you then got to ask yourself some really hard questions that in the day-to-day, we tend to find it really hard to ask.
Yeah.
And so I was going through a lot of that like everybody else and was realizing, wow, I have spent all this time hustling and bustling and busting my butt in the office, and now I'm seeing this other way of not just living but doing business.
Yeah.
And in that way of living and doing business, I realized like, oh no, there's another option outside of like getting to work at 8 and leaving at 6 and being seen as this person who is always going all in and prioritizing. Okay, now I want that. And so once I got really clear on the fact that, oh, that's what I wanted, the culture at the bank and me started to be more at odds. But on paper, I was successful there.
Sure.
Super successful. But then in 2020, it all kind of culminated in 2023, May, big month. I resigned from that bank. And then I graduated with my MBA. And I had no clue what was next. But I knew that I couldn't be at the bank anymore because it was just destroying me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
And I needed out. And so I basically bet on myself and was like, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
Now you're here.
And we're doing a lot of things.
Well, and that sort of brings us into like the topic at hand. I'm going to go fast forward in time and then go backwards in time.
Yeah.
So I have it's so funny, the LinkedIn algorithm and what surfaces for other people and what doesn't.
I'm 2 weeks behind now in this damn algorithm.
Well, but the thing is that when I was telling people that I was going to be talking to you, like, oh, I know Ashley, you responded to her thing. Like, hold on. And it was about your rebrand. It was the post about your rebrand, and whether they saw it on Threads, whether they saw it on LinkedIn, whether they saw it on both my like diehard friends who are always like supporting everywhere.
Yeah.
But talk about like a little bit about how you got to your first brand name and what led to the rebrand.
Yes. Oh my God. I love talking about this because I'm so happy with what I've landed on in terms of that. So when I left corporate, again, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked building companies.
Yeah.
And I knew I liked doing that from the perspective of tech product management. And so I was like, okay, I got to give this thing a name because, you're not official, I feel like, without a name.
And so, legally, you need a name, too.
Legally, you need a name. Yes, that little detail. And so I landed on Ashley Grace Consultancy because, obviously, Ashley's my first name. Grace is my middle name. And I like my name.
Yeah.
On all social platforms, I never go by Ashley Jefferson. I go by Ashley Grace Jefferson. So it felt natural. And then I was like, okay, how do I end this? Like, studio? Like, I didn't know. And so consultancy sounded elegant, but a little bougie. And I was like, okay, those are things that I am and a little
Sure.
polished. And it was such a mouthful as I kept going. And as I was trying to figure out, how do I bring that like pipeline of business that I want in?
Yeah.
How do I show up in business? From when I first started, I think I had like 7, 8 different offerings to now like the 3 I have.
Yeah.
Like I figured out on how to streamline, how to talk to founders, what all that language needs to look like. And the more and more I leaned into redoing my website and thinking about those things, what it required from me was to put personality back into my business. And it's so funny because it should not have taken me that long to get to that, because in corporate, I did not care. I was going to show up and be fully myself.
Sure.
And I never questioned that. Like, I wasn't someone who ever went into corporate situations and overthought like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm a this is how I must act in this situation. I never was like that. So then to be on the outside on my own and feel like I had to assimilate a little was a little weird to me. It was just strange. Like, I was like, how was I okay doing it for these big brands? And then coming out here on my own, I drifted away for that a little.
Yeah.
And so the more I started to put personality back into my business, which was who I am, it is who I am as a business person, then what ended up happening is that I realized like, okay, like we can't be Ashley Grace Consultancy anymore.
Your brand is off brand.
Yeah, the brand is off brand. So I'm like, okay, we can't be Ashley Grace Consultancy anymore. And my birthday was July 31st. And on my birthday, I had decided that I wanted to launch a newsletter.
Yeah.
And part of that was I started showing up on LinkedIn more, but I still felt like there was a disconnect in people understanding and knowing and believing in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And the content I was putting out. And so I was like, I think the newsletter is going to allow me to be a little more personal while giving them the story of how it all connects.
Yeah.
And so I ended up calling that newsletter Startup Baddie.
Yeah.
I had started as Startup Baddie on Threads and Instagram. So it was a name that I had tested on there and then moved to the newsletter. And then I was like, you know what? When it comes to working on your product from a tech product or community lens or doing content creation, it all just needs to happen as Ashley Grace Jefferson, founder, Startup Baddie. And so I was like, you know what? We're doing it. We're renaming everything. We're buying, internet
URLs.
addresses.
I love URLs.
We're buying
URLs is my favorite hobby.
That's exactly it. We're buying URLs and we're going to be Startup Baddie. And I made that post and I was shocked at how people responded to that.
So it was so you.
That's how we got it.
It was so you, and it was so refreshing. And, we're going to be talking to Ashley a few times. We've got a few other things we got teed up out here. And some of these other topics, I'm like, oh, that's exactly how and why. Like the whole polished piece, I think that's a conversation we've got going on. But it is that, I think it's the authenticity. I think it's the freshness of like actually using the word baddie. Yeah. Right? People are like, oh, she's got moxie. Yeah. She's got moxie using the word baddie on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, yes. On a platform where people feel like is super sanitized.
Totally.
Right?
It's our best selves.
It's our best selves, whatever that means. But yes, it is our best selves. But I love that there are creators out there that are looking to put more personality into that space.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad to be one of them with Startup Baddie.
No, and it's the other, I think it also fits with your other brand that you have.
Yes.
Really well. Founders, Funders, and Fractionals.
Yeah.
You want to talk about F3 a little bit?
Yes, F3. So F3 was born out of this like come to Jesus that I was having with myself post leaving corporate. And it was this realization of like, okay, how do I want to interact with companies? Yeah. And seeing the word fractional on LinkedIn, investigating it, being like,
can you define the word fractional? Because that's a new in the vocabulary thing that not everyone knows about.
Yeah, it totally is. So Fractional, as the New York Times defines it, because I always start my events with this definition, fractional, as the New York Times defines it, is a person who's senior in their career that is working with a company on a part-time basis. They don't just execute strategy, they set it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always get the question, well, how is that different from a freelancer or a contractor, right? And it's different in the sense of I see fractional as like the tip of the gig economy.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like how in typical corporations, right? Like we understand you start out as an analyst and then you go to associate, right? And you kind of work your way up. I see fractional as that for the gig economy. That's number one. Number two is the fact that when you say words like freelancer and contractor and consultant, they come like words mean something.
They got
right?
baggage.
They have tons of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
There's this for a freelancer, it's task oriented, right? For consultants and contractor, it's usually things like task oriented plus, oh, you do the fluffy strategic things, but you're not actually grounded in what the company can do and need, and you toss it all over the fence. And
Yeah.
And so that is what, like, fractional is not that. Like, there still is an embedded, I'm in the company. I'm just not there full time.
Yeah, you're invested. You're fully invested in the solution for not just like for the long run.
For the long run, yes. So that is like what a fractional is, how it compares to the gig economy.
And back to F3.
Yes.
And I took us on a detour, but I thought it was important.
But it's super valid. So as I was scrolling LinkedIn, I'm like, what is this? I talk to people. I'm like, oh, snap. Like, I really like this because my biggest qualms with corporate is like you're either living and dying for the job or like you're a slacker. And so I liked it. Truly.
It kind of does swing that pendulum, doesn't it?
Yeah, like you're living and dying. Oh, you're not doing that. You're slacking. Okay. Like weird, but cool. And so what I really liked about Fractional is like the people that were able to make it work really had like a satisfaction with their whole self, their whole lives. And so I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Where are the opportunities? And then crickets, right? Then you realize that like this isn't a model that has properly scaled, that founders and investors aren't on the same page as fractionals in terms of value. If they see the value in very specific roles, and they don't see it as like
a strategy.
An option and a strategy to like at least build their business initially. And so that's how F3 came about. And it's been around for a little over a year. And we started out by doing educational events and bringing the ecosystem together. And now it's graduated from those educational events to, hey, there's a benefit in just bringing the ecosystem together on problems that we all face as builders. Right? Whether you're a founder, investor, or fractional, you're going to think about strategic partnerships. You're going to think about building a waitlist that converts. You're going to think about what it looks like to fundraise, right?
Yeah.
And so with those two different types of events, it's been really great to bring people together. And yes, sometimes we flat out talk about the fractional model, and sometimes we just come together on a topic, and then it ends up coming up. So
yeah, and what I love about the Startup Baddie and how it fits with founders, and fractionals is that like the previous brand, great, solid, but it felt much more corporate than your community-based stuff, right? And this totally aligns in that, and it all like it gels so beautifully together.
I actually really like that you say that because it does. Because F3 is very edgy.
It's very founder based. It's very like I've been to your events. Like there's so many like people looking for funding. Like they're early stage startups. A lot of them. Yeah. Right. And it fits, and it helps you. It tells people who you are and how you roll in this world. Right. Yeah. But B, it also makes you so much more accessible to somebody who's in that stage. You're like, oh, she's a baddie like me. Yeah. Let me go and let me talk to her. Let me talk to her. Like, oh, maybe she can help me out.
Yes.
So
which happens. So I love it. It happens.
So I think that some of the stuff that you talked about was like you show up really authentically in the work that you do.
Yeah.
Like how has that like manifested itself? And you talked a little bit about how that fed into your brand, but like that's not something that comes easily to a lot of people, whether they're in the corporate side. You talked about it a little bit in that context, and then also as part of the rebrand. Like how have you tapped into the real Ashley, like, and helped her surface in this world?
Totally. So it definitely starts from young because when I think about the things that I was doing younger, I was like, well, you didn't want to, like, I don't know, run outside or something. Like, why were you mini CEO at 8? You know? But the Girl Scouts helped.
Okay.
You know, I was a Girl Scout up until 8th grade, and that really did help. Like, you know, every year in Girl Scouts, you're like selling cookies at minimum,
At the
right?
minimum.
But there's all these other like badges and things you're doing, and so like I now don't discredit like the things that we put the kids in as young because I do think it's foundation. So that was first. The second thing, kind of going back to that like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade lens, is I was commissioner of school spirit in 7th grade.
Of course you were. Of course you were.
And it so aligns because like I was also a cheerleader too, but I was commissioner of school spirit. And being commissioner of school spirit meant that I was putting on what they called the socials for the 3rd and 4th grade and the dances for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so it's funny because the socials looked like games and pizza and food and like they just like literally, I'm like, wow, you let me run with that in like at like 11, 12, you know, it was like insane.
Yeah.
And then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it was calling DJs and talking to them and getting contracts and understanding pricing, right? And so like when you have to like get over the fear of calling someone early, you kind of just like go for it. You put yourself out there. So I bring all of that stuff up because I do think that when I look back, like a lot of that was foundational.
Yeah.
Also, like my parents always told me like I could do anything and be anything.
Yeah.
And so like they never doubted that. And so then I never placed a doubt in myself. I would say that when
it's so lucky.
Yes, it is. It's great.
That's
like
so lucky.
They just always were like, yeah, you guys are going to be great. Like me and my sisters, they even tell us that to this day, right? It's very like, well, this is, you guys are just so smart. Like you're all going to be great and you're going to figure it out. And so like that was the self-talk. Really, any doubt that came in was seeing how other people responded to that. I think that was like the hard part of seeing how like I came in so sure and seeing other people's maybe like sour responses to it and internalizing it and be like, oh, did I do something wrong? Like I don't really understand, right? Like why is this happening? And then it's going on a journey of like really understanding that like be you, because like sometimes people are just projecting onto you. And like you really, it's true. And like you really have to be okay with that, right? But I bring this all up because to me it's like being sure in yourself also means like being able to like tune out the nonsense when it's coming at you. And the nonsense didn't really come from my immediate family. It came from people externally that saw someone that showed up and just like knew what she wanted and be like, well, how do you know, right? And so I feel like in the last couple of years, though, there's like an extra layer of that. Like the foundation has helped. But then like the more I feel like I get closer to like my vision and my goals for life, the more I realize that like I have to have time to plug into myself. I have to have time to talk to myself. I have to like having a dialogue with yourself, I feel like is super underrated, but it's really important to be able to check in with yourself and talk to yourself and ask yourself, like, are you doing this from a pure sense? Are you trying to perform? Like, what's your driver here? But like, I've learned and gotten really comfortable with having those honest conversations with myself. And then like I seek counsel when I need to, probably can be a little better at it, honestly. But I think talking to yourself and having those like really clear conversations is how I can be like, no, this is what I want to do. And I really don't care if you're like on board or not. It's what I want to do. And I know that that's what works for me.
Yeah. I love that last bit of advice because I mean, the reality of it is that everyone has different childhood backgrounds. I think that there's, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I think there are things to be learned from that in your self-discovery journey, but that all of that requires some sort of self-reflection. Like it is that, you know, what was I good at in junior high, or what was I in grade school? Like people always say, and some people don't have the greatest experiences there, but even like, what do I wish that I had at that moment?
Yes.
You know, like that's a big thing. And that is like a part of, that can be part of that self-discovery. And like, I mean, I'm team therapy, right?
I am too. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
But there's so many different paths for that self-reflection. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And so I'm just trying to take a look at our notes because we prep because we're preppers, right?
We're preppers. What? You guys should see how I prep for panels. I'm like, we will not be hemming and hawing here. Okay.
Yeah. she is a prepper.
Yeah.
But I think that, but the reality of it is actually let me ask a question that, we didn't touch on as I'm sitting here taking a look at.
Yeah.
So some people feel so attached to their brands.
Yeah.
Right? Attached to their identities. And the reality of it is that the world right now, for so many reasons, and let's just choose AI as the example for the purpose of the conversation, but there are so many more in my brain.
Yep.
But the world is shifting. It feels like almost every single day.
Yep.
And so identity is being challenged every single day. And it's sometimes so hard to let go of the identity that doesn't serve us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
There.
I know. But, I think I live this. I live some version of this literally every day.
Yeah. So you're right. And so this is so hard for people.
Yeah.
I think initially it was hard for me. I understand why it's hard for people because it's someone said to me healing is destructive. I also think it's in the same vein where in order to heal, in order to let go of something, in this case your brand or a version of yourself you once knew, it requires you to say it's not serving me anymore. And that's really hard. That's hard thing to be what in the hell? I'm being required to level up again, I'm telling you, I'm but I think in the beginning you resist it. So if anyone's feeling resistance, it's normal, right? Yeah. But then when you realize that in every level up, there's something that you gain from the situation, then over time, I felt the resistance just kind of slowly chips away. And now in 2025 really was the epitome for me. It's not over, but thus far, it's been the epitome of sometimes you just have to take it day by day and kind of let things unfold. As preppers, as someone who likes getting ahead of things, it's been really weird to be well, let me just see where this goes, right? But I think it's understanding that there are times where you drive things ahead and there's times where you have to let it unfold. Yeah. It's the same thing for identities and brands, right? There's a time where it's okay, this is who I am and I'm just going to keep going. But then you really do have to be open to just new information as it unfolds and what that means for your worldview. But I think that it really does come back to having those conversations with yourself. Mm-hmm. If you have those conversations with yourself, if you're taking in information and you're trying to create well-rounded perspective, eventually you'll kind of, phase into that person you need to be. Yeah. But at first it's going to be resistant. And then the more you keep morphing, I feel it gets less resistant because you understand what's happening.
And it's a muscle you build.
It is a muscle. It's literally like going to the gym, right? You don't put on muscle without lifting heavy weights. And then, you want to maintain that muscle, you want to build muscle, and the weights get heavier and it gets harder. And so it's probably the best description for that.
The workout metaphor shows up a lot on the podcast. And I'd say, but I think that what you were also touching on, and I don't want it to go unnoticed, is the self-evaluation. That's one thing. And the constant check-ins with yourself, I think, is important, and being is this serving me? But I think that the other piece that you touched on ever so lightly, or you not as deeply is a better way to say it, but is seeking counsel from others, right? Mm-hmm. So, trying to start with a couple of different mini series on the podcast. And the branding is going to be one of them. We're going to have a couple of episodes on that back to back. And in the other episode in this mini series, I talked about fascinate. There's a self-assessment, the Fascinator Advantage, that I took. Ooh. And one of the things that came back for me was avant-garde. And I was telling other people about this, and I was it felt so not me. I'm not avant-garde. I dress normcore. I'm so whatever. I'm so boring, right? But everyone's no, that's so you. And then I looked at the definition of it, and it was that you look at the world differently. I'm oh, I do that. But like
That's
seeing how
this
other
podcast,
this
you know what I'm saying? Like this podcast is a perfect representation of that.
yeah, and it's I guess it is. Yeah, now that I think about it. But it's I think finding those external sources, like if you have that trusted person, like, hey, what do you think about me? Or hey, what do you think of my brand? Or hey, you know, like it's even taking that self-assessment and seeing how you react to it.
Yeah.
That's a version of having a sounding board because not everyone has the people that they feel comfortable with on that stuff.
Super important. Yes, I think a word that I want to highlight that you said was trusted.
Yeah.
I'll also throw in discernment, right? Like one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and I think this does kind of go into your sense of self where it can skew it if you are not talking to the right people.
Oof. Yes. Talk more.
Okay. So when I left corporate, I wasn't very forthcoming to people about what I was doing because honestly, I didn't really know what I was doing. So why am I going to take in opinions and things when I don't even know what's up?
Yeah.
Right. And so that was level 1 discernment of being like, I'm going to protect my peace and my process.
Yeah.
And I need to feel out who to tell, who not to tell. Then there was a second level of discernment of when I did open up to certain people, you kind of see their stuff come out onto you. And by their stuff, I mean that sometimes people will give advice or give perspective from a place of them and not what's best for you. And when they do that from a place of them, sometimes it's well-meaning. I don't mean to say that all of this is like not well-intended.
Of course.
Sometimes it's super well-meaning. Other times it's maybe not or well-meaning from the sense of like they couldn't like conceive how
a different reality. Yeah.
And so they can't even conceive how you would do it, even though you're a different person.
100%.
Sarah Blakely.
Yes.
Blakely?
Yeah.
Is that her last?
Spanx.
Yes, Spanx.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Spanx founder. There's this TikTok that sticks with me to this day. She had just joined TikTok. This was back in 2023. And she's like doing a get ready with me. And she said she did not tell anyone about Spanx, her family, for a year. She said that the only people that knew were like her husband and investors and anyone who was a part of bringing the product to life.
Yeah.
That was it. And it stuck with me because she said, you know, when I did tell them at that year mark, I was far into the process. But, you know, all people kept even telling me at that year mark was like, well, how do you know Macy's isn't going to beat you up, right? Like they were bringing up things and like, I get it. Like these things do sound rational, right?
But they're not helpful.
And there's a lot about building a business that is a little delusional. And
you got to have a little delulu. Yeah.
Yes. And so it really, that story sticks with me. I actually need to go back and find that TikTok and save it. That story sticks with me though, because she practiced discernment.
Yeah.
Right. She understood she understood the players in her life.
Yeah.
And who she could tell and when she should tell them in order to execute on her vision.
Yeah. And what you touched on, I think there's such a sensitive place that you're talking about, the moments when you do start telling others, because, you know, part of being successful as, you know, an entrepreneur, a professional, and anything, right, is you do need to talk to others so that they can help you along the way.
Totally.
But then you inevitably will. It's not an if, it's a will, and it's a when, and it's a how.
Yep.
Somebody is going to come and try and consciously, unconsciously, intentionally, unintentionally burst your bubble.
Yes.
And like what you do with after that is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Super hard.
It's hard. And like, you're not alone. There's a whole, you know, that's a whole episode unto itself.
It is.
But I think you've given some really good advice, Ashley.
I love yapping.
You're a good, but I think that there's so many of us, I'll talk about myself, and part of why I started the podcast is that I wasn't really good at talking about myself. Like I'm really good at talking about everybody else.
Yeah.
Not good at talking about myself.
Yep.
And part of this was like a leap of faith to see what happens. And so like, you know, I think that bold moves, small moves, whatever it is for people, like don't be afraid to rebrand your company, rebrand yourself.
Yep.
Try it on in a forum like Threads, like you were doing with Startup Baddie.
Yes.
See how it resonates. And guess what? It's a home run.
Yeah.
and then see where and then see where it takes you. So I encourage everyone, like, do the reflection, do the self-reflection. It's totally worth the time. It's not always easy. You can do it in micro moments. You can do it in big things.
Yes.
Seek
Yeah.
counsel.
Seek counsel.
But don't be afraid to get unstuck. Don't be afraid to get unstuck.
Don't be afraid to get unstuck. There's a will, there's a way. Cheesy, but true.
But it's true. Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. You are not going to be a stranger on the podcast.
Absolutely
I'm so excited about
not.
that. And I know that our listeners are going to get something good out of this one. And I hope y'all join us next time when we talk about another topic from the Messy Middle. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for taking time with us in the Messy Middle. Word of mouth remains the most powerful way for people to find us. If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app, download a few episodes, and share it with someone else who's navigating the in-between. Do you have ideas for future episodes or topics you'd like us to explore? You can find our feedback form at themessymiddlematters.com or in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on this journey. This work is better when we do it together. Until next time.